All right, here we go. Hey everyone. All right, as always, you know that I'm excited to have another great conversation. I'm really confident these conversations are going to be great because I've been able to do so many of them. And by the time we hit record, usually the guest and I have had a lot of great chats already that I'm looking forward to diving into a little bit deeper. Joining me today is Dr. Steve Tullius. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how's it going, Doc? It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. I love to start this show. I mean, I've got your bio. A lot of listeners may know you, but some people don't. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing these days, and then we'll dive into what got you here.
Yeah, absolutely. I am now 24 years as a chiropractor. I'm not currently in practice. My practices were in California. In 2020, I moved to Austin, Texas, for a variety of reasons that which we can dive into because I really that journey has really helped define who I am today.
Mm,
Um, and currently, I run Waitlist workshops, which is a turnkey workshop system for chiropractors and other types of providers who are mission driven, who don't want to shrink their message and get in front of their people who need them the most.
mm,
Um, I'm also the chairman of the board of Sherman College of Chiropractic. I'm one of the steering leaders of the Chiropractic Freedom Coalition and also a co-chair of the Maha Chiropractic Working Group, which really excited. Just got off one of our weekly calls there. So highly involved in the profession because
mm,
this big idea needs to get to the masses.
mm. You've got your hands in a lot of different places right now. It sounds like you're excited to be involved politically, make some changes, as well as directly with docs. So, 24 years in practice, same graduation year as myself.
Cool.
And let's start from the beginning. Like, why did you want to become a chiropractor? What were your first early years like? And then we'll get into where you got to now.
Yeah. So from about the age of 8, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. However, in my worldview, that meant medicine. Not because I went to the medical doctor a lot, but because that's all I knew or thought was possible. Um, I entered a chiropractic office when I was 15. And it was because I was the youngest of 4 kids, and my one of my older brothers I really looked up to, and he had started going to the chiropractor after really injuring his back playing football in high school. And so I actually it was before I think I was probably 13. And I went because I told my mom I had back pain, which and I didn't. I wanted to do what he was doing and to experience this thing. And I'll never forget that experience for many reasons. One being just the difference, the huge difference between walking into that office versus the standard medical office that I was always
Mm.
used to, that white, sterile, oddly smelling,
Clinical,
devoid of
yeah.
life, a glass partition environment versus this warm, colorful walls, hugging environment.
Hmm.
So that was the first, big difference I noticed. And then I'm sitting in the consultation room, which is a very small room, and it had a neuropathylator on the wall. And I don't know if you're familiar with the neuropathylator.
No.
A really cool patient education device and it was big and it had the like a Merrick chart, right?
Yeah.
And you push and it had all these buttons and you push the buttons and it would show the nerves going to the different parts of the body and the organ lighting up and showing this interference in the system. And when you touch the Atlas, button, the whole system was just going haywire, right? And so it just
Sounds
that
about
made
right.
yeah, that made sense to me. And
Hmm.
then this man walked in the room with these really big hands, and his name's Dr. John Holland, still in practice. And he told me about the power that made the body heals the body, and explained chiropractic in a way that made total sense. And I was already on board because my brother was doing it. But the biggest thing that happened that day for me was the experiential part and the actual adjustment. And I got adjusted, and I just remember all this weight being lifted off of me that I had no idea was
Mm,
even there, right?
mm,
And just walking out, I feel like I was floating, and feeling like, wow, this is what life is actually supposed to feel like. And so it was that got me into the into chiropractic office, it was a series of events, which I believe this is a purposeful universe. And it was accidents and injuries that kept coming into my life. Football injuries, car accidents, one after the other to just keep, well, I see it now, is to keep me in that setting. And it was, I was still pre-med though. Like in my mind, I was still, even though I was experiencing chiropractic, I felt all these benefits, performance enhancement in sports, all these things. I was pre-med in college and I had a injury to my shoulder playing football. And the chiropractor, he told me, it's like, you know what, why don't you go see an orthopedic doc? And that one thing he recommended, which is I'm really glad for the referral because it was that moment when I went for that orthopedic exam where the doctor didn't touch me. He didn't do any orthopedic tests, even though, personally, I don't think those have a whole lot of value. But
Mhm.
he didn't touch me. And then the next uh, solution or was to do an MRI, and that showed nothing. And so his next solution was to cut me open and take a look. And that was so it was just I just remember that moment. It's like he's like, okay, yeah, go ahead and schedule that at the front desk and it'll be super easy, all these things. And I was like, I was nodding okay. And in my head, I was
Mm.
like, no way.
Yeah, I don't
And
think so. Yeah.
and I walked out of that office and I knew like there was a lightning bolt. Like I was supposed to be a chiropractor. Like it all
Mm.
just hit me at that moment. Like, wow, that's not the path I want to go down. They're having so much fun on this path and so much better results and everything. So that's my origin story.
hmm And then you went from that situation into, university or straight to Sherman, graduated, and did you go into like solo practice? Did you associate? Tell us about your early days of chiropractic.
Yes. So I actually, even though I'm the chairman of the board of Sherman, I didn't go to Sherman.
Okay.
I went to Los Angeles College of Chiropractic, now known as Southern
Okay.
California University of Health Sciences,
Yeah.
and where subluxation was laughed at, right? And
Yeah.
that was my experience. Now I went there because I lived in LA. I lived close enough,
Right.
and my chiropractor told me, he said, "Well, go there and you won't learn chiropractic. I'll teach you chiropractic when you get out."
Right.
And I thought, okay,
I heard the same thing about going to CMCC.
yeah. So I was like, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
so I did that, and then I associated with him for I think about 6 months, maybe 9. Learned a ton, amazing adjuster, just fantastic on that side. And then I got engaged and married and decided we were going to move out of the area because LA is LA and just didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And moved up to the Central Coast of California and bought a practice, which learned a whole lot of mistakes in that process. And then, yeah, just floundered for a while between not really understanding the depth of chiropractic philosophy or the detection and correction of vertebral subluxation at the proficient level that I needed, or the business side of it. And so just floundered going to seminars until it all kind of came together, right? And
Mm.
probably about 6 to 7 years in was where it finally clicked, and that where I felt, now, and then things just really started to move forward from there.
Mhm. Was there a specific like practice management change that you made, or coaching, or resources, or just your own personal evolution? Like where do you think, you made that change? Did it come from within or something outside in? A lot of docs listen to this may be
Yeah,
struggling as well. They may be like, I
sure.
don't know what I need, but I need to do something.
Yeah.
So how did it change for you?
It was knowing that there was more to this thing than what I was currently doing or practicing, and that came
Hmm
through initially going to a Parker seminar and
hmm
hearing Dr. Jim Sigafus,
Yeah.
who, if any of you listening to this now, if you didn't have the chance to hear him while he was living, go to YouTube, look up some of his videos. I used to listen to his lay lecture, I don't know
Mm.
how many times back when iPods were a thing
Yeah.
and MP3s were new in the
Yeah.
world. I would just listen to it over and over, along with Reggie Gold. Those are two, like if you're
Mhm.
struggling out there and around communication, go to those greats and find other greats who you really
Mhm.
admire, who are currently, experts there.
Mhm.
So I went to that Parker seminar, and I just remember, if you remember Dr. Sigafus, he talked really fast and he has a really strong Southern accent. And it was really hard to understand him, but he was so excited about this thing. He's talking about philosophy and in a way bigger way than I had ever been exposed to. And
Mhm.
that really led me to wanting to understand our philosophy, right? Because mo many, I mean, going to that school, it was actually laughed at and frowned upon. We were given
Right.
34 principles instead of 33, the 34th
Right.
being may the force be with you.
Right.
And so I dove into the green books. I got connected to Cal Jam and with Billy
Mm.
DeMoss
Yeah.
and I left there wanting to start a philosophy group. So I started one called 33 DCs, started bringing in people. And but you know
Yeah.
what I realized in that process was that I was looking for external motivation and not true inspiration
Mm.
because I needed to be motivated versus to be inspired. And when you become a master of something as big as chiropractic, there's no need for external motivation anymore, when you really,
Right.
really understand this thing. So
Hmm.
that was my how I now to give credit to someone really special who gave me a lot of great skills. That was Dr. David Jackson through Epic
Hmm.
Practice. He was one of the first to come up with the a module-based, monthly,
Yeah.
affordable coaching
Yeah.
program. And so I'm sure so many people went through that. And for me, I was deathly afraid of public speaking. And that really gave me a lot of the courage and the communication and just some of the business pieces of chiropractic to start to really go out and refine and perfect the public speaking aspect.
Hmm. Oh, you brought up so many names that are so close to my heart. Like, a lot of mentorship too. And listeners, I'm going to put in the show notes the links to Dr. David Jackson has been on the podcast at least once, possibly twice. Really enjoyed my time with him. I also remember taking those module practice management. It was great because it was self-paced and you had a great
Yep.
community. And also Dr. Sigafus's daughter, Dr. Selena, she has been on the podcast as well. So I will drop those links in the show notes. But I like what you said there, Steve, around like, you know, if you're a vitalistic doc, you're typically looking at the body as healing from the inside out, right? And you're looking at supporting things from inside. And yet we often look for ideas and validation and wisdom from outside in. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be learning things, we shouldn't be educating ourselves, right? But we have to remember that we have this internal innate wisdom as well. And it's tapping into that. It's harnessing that power within us and really owning it that I think can be the key to a lot of doc success, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, intuition, innate messages, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have this incredibly beautiful profession that blends mechanism with vitalism, right?
Hmm.
And if it's not complete unless you have both, right?
Right.
And so I'm a highly intuitive person, empathic. I always have been. So a lot of that came through, refining that gift, too. I believe everyone has those gifts and
Hmm.
abilities, but they can be muted if your nervous system is muted,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
can they can be just muted through parents, teachers, preachers,
Hmm.
right? All these people as well. So yeah, I think there's a huge advantage to tapping into and understanding the intuitive aspects that
Hmm.
we have.
Is that what led you to Texas from California?
Well, partly. I mean,
Mm.
anything I do like that, any big move, I'm going to ask the question, like,
Right.
is this right? And also
Yeah.
pray, pray as well, right? And
Yeah.
ask for those messages.
Yeah.
And in fact, even I can remember, being afraid, because my practice was primarily children with various neuro developmental disorders, autism, epilepsy,
Okay.
and this one case in particular. being afraid should I, there was fear. Do I adjust this child, right? Because he's having multiple seizures throughout the day. He had various disorders and challenges, and there was some fear. And so I just remember vividly just asking the question,
Mm,
is this the right thing? And the message was crystal clear, right? And
mm,
so I think um, there's so much value in that. To answer the question more fully regarding the move from California, my family, my wife at the time, and my son, we saw the writing on the wall. California was becoming more and more a forced
hmm.
medicalization state, and
Yeah.
my son has various autoimmune challenges. He was diagnosed with pandas when he was 7. It came on when he was 5.
Mm,
And his labs consistently show just super high levels of various toxins in his urine, and we're in San Diego where you think it's like this clean environment, but in reality, you got Air Force bases, you have the port there, so he had all these petroleums in his urine and
hmm.
things. Even though we're living the very organic lifestyle, so we moved to Texas primarily to get him to a cleaner,
Mm,
safer environment, and we did
yeah.
see a big shift in those types of labs, just with that type of move,
Hmm.
um, and you know, philosophically and politically to get out of an oppressive state.
Yeah, if you moved in 2020, there's a lot of things happening in 2020 that would have made a lot of us want to move. I'm in
It was
Canada, so there was different things that we were
uh,
dealing with up here, obviously, but in the world, I think it made people question, their values and how they wanted to live. And well, good for you for making that change. I know that relocating. So did you build a new practice when you moved to Texas?
I kept the practices. I had 2 locations in California, and I managed those from afar for 4 years, maybe 5. So
Mhm.
yeah, 4 years. 2020 four is when I ended up selling those. So that taught me a lot, like how to manage, both good and bad, like how to manage
Mhm.
practices from afar. And so I didn't start practices here. I was burnt out. I know you really stress in your podcast the importance of building, building your practice around your life too, and what's best
Mhm.
for you. I didn't have much more to give at that point. I was
I mean, before you moved to Texas, or at some point when you sold the practices?
when so leading up to selling the practices, I was so ready. I could
Yeah.
and my so I don't know if you're very familiar with pandas, but it's going to be one of the most challenging situations a parent
Mm.
ever encounters. And so the emotional stress and of that was just there was nothing left in my tank.
Mm.
And so I needed the break there for myself and for the family. And then also I really wanted to grow waitlist workshops too, which
Mm.
to run a practice and to build a whole another business,
Mm.
not the easiest thing, especially given what I was facing at the time.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah. A lot of docs, when I've worked with them to expand their practices online or just develop programs, they think it's going to be, an easy kind of side gig. I'm like, you have no idea. Like, this is a whole other business you have to invest in and with time. And most docs, if you're running a full-time practice, you either have to have the space for it and a great team, or you have to be very realistic in in your outcomes and the time it's going to take because I know personally as well, it's a whole other game. It's a whole other business.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
So you were associate, you then built your own practice, then you moved to having 2 practices. Clearly, you're familiar with then hiring people and having people run like other docs run in your office. And now you've merged into a whole other role. You've had quite the chiropractic experience already in 24 years.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah,
Right.
that's also a great way to
Yeah,
be.
I have plans. I have a partner here in Texas to open 7 to 10 practices.
Yeah.
So working on that and, look from a whole new lens of getting private equity and what does that
Mm,
mean and how to really build something like that. Which
mhm.
and keep in mind, I never had any of these goals or, aspirations. I never wanted more than one practice. I never thought I'd
Right.
ever sell my initial practice. I didn't share with everybody that first practice I built. It wasn't in San Diego, it was on the Central Coast. And in
Mm.
2012, I sold that along with all of our possessions, and we took a 9 month trip around the world, and came back completely broke. I got it, the sale of the practice was actually very lucrative.
Yeah.
But the cost of traveling around the world without a job for 9 months was actually a lot more expensive than I had planned. I was
Yeah.
a poor planner of that. I wish there was AI at the time, would have given me a more realistic understanding of what was going to involve.
Yeah.
I don't regret it at all, but because it taught me a ton. But yeah, I guess my experience has been pretty robust. I've been involved. I've testified in front of the U.S. Department of Education twice regarding our accrediting body and some of that political stuff. So yeah,
Mm.
I've seen the gamut of this profession,
Mm.
and I continue to be an eternal optimist regarding
Yeah.
our future.
Yeah. I don't think you can ever regret travel though, right? I mean, I think back to some of the things I've done. I was a solo parent with not like they've got an active dad who's amazing, but like in our household here and a solo practitioner. And I think about the money that I've spent on us to travel and do cool things. And sometimes I give myself, shit because I'm like, you should have invested that and done this and made different decisions. And I look at who my sons are right now. I'm like, no, you know what? No changes. Everything
Yeah.
worked out great. They're great, great humans, and the things that you learn from travel, I think, are irreplaceable. So I'm sure I mean, you clearly have a lot of resilience. You clearly have a lot of grit. You clearly have a lot of drive in advancing yourself. Do you think this all is just part of who you are, or do you work at it? Like, do you have practices that help you stay motivated, grounded, inspired, as we talked about earlier, healthy?
Yeah, I do believe I was born a little differently than my like say some of my siblings. They don't share some of the same qualities or not that they don't have amazing drives in their different areas, but I just always felt different. I don't know if there's maybe some of the empathic part because I always just knew what people were thinking and
Mm,
I could feel that and I don't know. I just always knew different things, and I was always very driven uh to be now, okay. I'm also a
So part
Leo.
of it is who you are. Like you just really,
Yeah.
it sounds like you're highly self-aware. And I'm sure your experiences in chiropractic and in being adjusted and having some great mentors and diving into the philosophy have shaped your groundedness and your awareness of who you are and the gifts that you bring.
Yeah, and I've had great coaches, right,
Yep.
along this path. Playing sports, I I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I always wanted to win. And so those are great qualities to have when you're running a business, right? Or you're so I believe that I'm always going to win. Now, do I
Mm,
always win? No. Like I just had this we just did a team call with our Weightless Workshops team and we talked about winning and also losing.
mm,
Losing is very, very necessary. It happens all the time.
yeah.
We win throughout the day, we lose throughout the day. But it's all about long-term vision and purpose and
Mm,
what are you working towards? If lives are at stake, then how can you stop?
mm. And so, if you think about the projects you have going on now, what is exciting you the most? Is it the political involvement you have? Is it the practices that you're going to build? Is it the workshops that you're helping people build? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, it's all of the above. For me, now I'm learning how to manage all these things. I'm growing into, I'd say leadership is the biggest thing for me. And it's interesting how things, everything happened. I believe it's a purposeful universe. I don't think I
Mhm.
was ready a year ago, like to lead a lot of these different things.
Mhm.
And so now I see it as opportunity for growth to really grow in this area. Whereas before I was trying to do way too much instead of create the systems and infrastructure and teams and delegate and cultivate leadership in others
Mhm.
so that these things can actually happen.
Right.
And in the past, as a recovering perfectionist, I would constantly be like, oh, I can do that. I can do that, or I can do that better. And yes, maybe I can, but if
Yeah.
someone else can do it really great, and so I really let go of micromanaging, like, and I continue to. I have a CEO coach now, and I'm working on that. So I think the key is um, just self-awareness and
Mhm.
being um, honest,
Yeah.
recognizing that it's not right or wrong. Like we judge ourselves so much. Limiting beliefs, I'm still discovering them and working through them and
Mhm.
speaking them out into the world, right? I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do is
Yeah.
speak those things out into the world so that others can support us and
Mhm.
also hold us accountable. And so yeah, that's so in terms of what am I most excited about? I'm most excited about where Waitlist Workshops is going. I understand
Yeah.
we're not a workshop company. We're a communication company. I really understand why I was so successful. I've given over 300 workshops myself.
Okay.
And so from someone who was deathly afraid of public speaking to being able to close the majority of the room, and not just the majority of the room, but once they come in for care, the majority of those people at really high rates. I was playing small though, and allowing my imposter syndrome and other limiting beliefs to stop me from saying how great I was at that thing
Mhm.
out of fear of what my members might think, right? Of considerations for like, well, if I say I'm great at this, then I'm implying that they're maybe not so good at it. I don't want to offend anybody.
Right.
When and so I'm clear now that people don't come to us for full rooms. That's just a math problem. Anyone could do that if they know the principles
Right.
and have as much experience as we have. But it's the voices found piece. That's what we specialize in,
Mm.
helping people understand the principles, not being me, but I'm really clear now with the principles to build rapport, trust, credibility, handle objections, get into agreement, give people a pattern interrupt, and ask them to suspend their beliefs just for tonight, and then go into give them logical certainty, but most importantly, the entire thing is a belief game.
Mhm.
It's emotional certainty.
Mhm.
Can, and so I reverse it. I think this would be helpful for people. Ultimately, this is the question I ask my members all the time. How confident are you if people come to the workshop and they schedule an exam and they stick with your recommendations for care? How confident are you that they're going to have a massive transformation in their life if they do those things? What do you think the majority of chiropractors say to that? What percentage range do you think they say?
Oh God, I would love it to be 90, but I'm gonna say 50.
So we work with this, and we're pretty specific on who we work with. So once they get through like to our member, like to be a member, they're gonna have high certainty, they're vitalistic, they're
Yeah.
subluxation focused for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So it's 80 to 100%,
Okay.
right? And so the biggest difference between someone who's at 80% and 100% is their certainty in their product, right?
Right.
And so that's so the reason I bring that up is because then the next question is really important. So if that's true, then why would anyone ever decide not to at least find out? to see what it looks like, to see if you can help them.
Right.
And that's the question I obsessed over for years. And then what I did through my workshops is I reverse engineered that so that and that's just a so when it comes down to it, if people don't sign up, now there can be some other reasons, right? Maybe they're moving away, that next
Mm-hmm.
week but if people don't sign up for an exam, or for that matter, when they come in for an exam, if they don't sign up for care,
Mm-hmm.
it's ultimately because they don't believe us that
Mm-hmm.
that we can provide that transformation. Now there's as you know, there's other caveats. They have objections, there's different things, but if you blend it all together and communicate, and it's the information it's not information, it's the communication, it's
Right.
tonality, it's it's energy, it's passion,
Yeah.
purpose, mission.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they work with you?
Yeah, you can't just have all this influx of, new people without having anything to back it up, even once they get into the office. You can't just say the things, you actually have to hold them true, is what I think.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
your team too.
Yeah. We'll just back up a tiny bit in that let's talk about what actually waitlist workshops are. You're training docs to give great workshops. It sounds like you've got the how-to, but also to how to market them as well. And it sounds like you've got a great community in ongoing coaching for them and helping them build their certainty and confidence.
Yeah, so we have pre-made topics. These are topics that I had in my as my avatars, my clinics. So offices that want to see kids and families, and those with more chronic challenges, right? The sickest of the sick, the people
Mm,
that our profession used to always attract into our offices in masses before we became more third party, focused and put into a musculoskeletal box. I got tired
right.
of that. I got tired of that. That was
Kind
that
of
was
boring too. Yeah.
that was draining my soul. And I
Yeah.
think it happens. I think that's the unspoken question or problem that a lot of people don't want to look at. They
Mm,
have a lot of times docs have really big practices, really big practices, but it's not the practice that they sought out, when they were in chiropractic college. And
mm,
so we help offices that want to see kids and families, kids with autism, ADHD, sensory processing. We have a gut-brain connection workshop, so autoimmune issues, fibromyalgia, digestive, hormonal, just these individuals who are sick and getting sicker, and then mental health matters. So people, with anxiety, depression, PTSD. Those
mm,
are those are our three workhorse classes. That represents over 60% of the country. So that's a big reason why our workshops do so well. We average over 20 people in attendance. We just had a
right.
doc with 32, another one with 44.
Right.
Um, and the reason is that there's no shortage of sick people. And so
Right.
we give them
Yeah.
so they don't have to recreate the wheel. We give them the presentation, videos of me giving the presentations, videos going over the slides. But that's not enough, because if they don't own the things I'm talking about right now and those principles, how to give people emotional certainty,
Mm,
then they're going to have, and it can happen. You could have 32 people in the room, but only one person sign up. That's a belief problem. And typically, here's what happens. Here's how you know that you didn't give people emotional certainty and you only gave them logical certainty. It happens all the time. I remember this vividly. You think you gave a great workshop. You're excited. Wow, that felt great. And people are excited too. They're coming up to you, thanking you, and they say, "Hey, doc, that was such great information." That's when you know all you did was give them logical certainty,
mm,
right? Instead, they should be coming up to you and with, saying, "Why didn't anyone ever tell me this? Thank you so much. I just booked an appointment for me and my whole family."
mm,
Right? That's emotional certainty. And if we only give people, now here's another problem though. We can give emotional certainty in chiropractic in the solution, but if
mm,
we don't give emotional certainty in ourselves and our clinic, then what we've actually done is we've marketed someone else's practice,
mm.
someone who is closer to them,
Right.
someone who's in network with insurance if you're not,
Right.
um, or any other reason. And so people should be leaving that class not knowing but feeling that. I need to at least see if this person in this office can be the answer to the prayers that I have every evening.
Hmm.
And that's a completely an emotional thing.
Hmm. When did you know that you had another whole business here to run? Like you were doing talks, it sounds like in your practice, highly successful with it. When did you decide that, you know what, I got something to offer here. Let me try to, spring this into something else?
Yeah, so I had a company called Chiropractic Is first. Chiropractic Is was brochures, posters, websites, and so I had a blog and I was doing a lot of that. And then it was but I was doing workshops for myself.
Right,
And this was 2012, and I figured out the formula to regularly attract uh, 10, 15, 25 people to my workshops twice a month. And so people saw me on social media doing it. One was a good friend, Dr. Sean Carey in Massachusetts, and he said, "Hey, would you do this for me?"
mm,
And he saw what I was doing, and he said, "Man, you gotta make this available for the profession." And so that was it. And he told me like we systematized it, we did
right,
all the things. And at first, and this is part just not knowing the problems that would happen, but just probably also selling myself short and limiting beliefs. I was selling the individual workshops as a package, right? Here, you get the Unraveling Neurodevelopmental Disorders workshop with all this stuff, and my team will run the ads for the first two workshops, and then we'll show you how to do it yourself, or you can continue to work with us like per workshop.
right.
Well, you could probably imagine the problems that arose. Um, Facebook, social media is constantly changing. And I mean, we're changing our techniques, our advertising, creatives on a weekly basis now, but back then there usually is a massive Facebook update that will really wreak havoc on your marketing and every
Hmm.
6 months or so, 6 to 9 months. So we found that people weren't getting the same results, right, as us, or they didn't have time to do it. It takes a lot of time to
Yeah, yeah.
create the ad campaigns, all the stuff, the autoresponder emails, the all this stuff that goes into having a workshop. And so what we did was we flipped that. When I moved to Texas, I was able to invest all the time, energy, money into creating a monthly membership. So
Right,
doctors who work with us now, that also solves for consistency. Because with
right.
workshops, it's all about doing it consistently. So now
Hmm.
our members can give up to two workshops per month. And all they have to do is give us the time, date, and location, and our team does the rest. From there, their teams don't have to make any calls, do anything like that. All they have to do is be ready to present to a room full of people and give them that emotional certainty that we've been
Hmm.
talking about. And it's that simple. So
Hmm.
that's what I love about it is that I wish this was available for me when I was first out of chiropractic college or somewhere along that journey instead of having to create it
Hmm.
all.
Well, I think that's why some people come along in this world, right? Like, I think you sounds like to me like you started it with heart. You just did it. The same reason I started the first podcast I ever did was like, you know what? No one's talking about this stuff in chiropractic. I need to do this. And I think sometimes those are the best businesses, right? Like, they just start with the purity of intention and wanting to do good in the world. And there's often a ripple effect that comes from that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our guiding compass. It's in our core values. The big idea drives this whole thing. I just
Yeah.
consider it a vehicle.
Yeah.
It's a vehicle to get this message out to the masses, and it's a vehicle for me to help reinvest resources into all these other branches of chiropractic that I'm working within.
Hmm. So with all the things that you've done, so you've been an associate, you've run multiple practices, you've taught workshops, you're leading others in workshops, you're coaching right now, you're involved politically. What would you say to a new grad right now before we wrap up here?
Uh, you
Is there
know,
anything that you wish you knew earlier in your career?
I think the key is really understanding a couple of things. One is how devastating a vertebral subluxation is to an individual, and especially if it happens at birth. Like understanding on a scientific and philosophical level how that squashes that individual's human potential.
Mm,
And then from there, what that means, BJ talked about it. Uh, a subluxation to one person is a small thing, but a big thing for that one person. But when you multiply that by a city, state, and nation, that becomes massive. And so the big idea of chiropractic, really studying, like learning from others who embody this thing. Because chiropractic is not a career. If you take it on as a career, you're going to fail. Like if
mm,
you're looking to simply make money, you might make some, you might make a lot, but will you be happy? So my message to them is that they can be both happy and make a lot of money, and it comes from really deciding to be a steward and servant of this big idea.
hmm
Because once you have that, you'll always have the inspiration.
hmm
You'll always have the support of individuals like myself. And once you know this information, I don't think there's any other option than to not play small.
hmm Okay, new grads, if you heard that, I hope you take it to heart and connect with Dr. Steve if you need a little bit more of a dive on to what he means by that. What are some ways that people can best connect with you? So, listeners, we are going to put in the show notes all kinds of links for you. But if people want to dive in right now, what would you tell them?
Yeah, social media is a great way to, Instagram message me or Facebook. I'm super accessible. I
Mm-hmm.
love chatting with people, meeting people, understanding, where they're at, what they need. So yeah, that's the first step. Jumping on a call. Best way to do that is go to waitlistworkshops.com, and there'll be a calendar there. And that could go for, anyone where you're at, right? I don't need new members. I don't like that's I'm looking for people who want to lead this profession when I'm gone. And I realize, I'm 48. I only plan on leading this thing for another 12 years, maybe a little bit longer. But one of the biggest problems in chiropractic has been that our leaders don't know when to step back and allow others to lead and foster and create the next generation of leaders. So anyway, if anyone wants to chat, let's chat.
That's the way to do it. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a true pleasure. You are very optimistic, which I love to see. I'm with you in that there's, when you see what we see in our offices, there's not a lot of reason not to be, but the world can certainly try to break people down. Business is not easy. There's some forces out in the world against people's success at times, and you've certainly shown us some ways to rise through them and keep our perspective where it needs to be to stay grounded. I'm sure you've had other setbacks that we didn't even touch on yet, but you also are a constantly evolving kind of person, which is exciting to see, and I'm sure listeners are going to take a lot of inspiration from that. So thanks so much for your time today. Do you have any final parting thoughts before we wrap up here for any listeners of all stages of practice life?
Yeah, no, just yeah, Melissa, thank you so much for the opportunity. Love chatting with you. Would love to have you on a podcast that I have with my co-host Pacha. We have something called Subluxation Squad. Would love you to be a guest. We're looking to talk to people like yourself about the subluxations in
Mhm.
practice and in the profession that are holding us back from achieving our our optimal potential in both places. The just I would encourage everyone to be grateful for what they have in their hands. Ask yourself if you believe you were born to be a chiropractor. If you do, that means it's so much about what a gift, number one, to be given that opportunity, and two, don't judge yourself on where you're at right now or ever in the process.
Yeah.
And reach out to individuals and keep listening to things like this, where you get the support, inspiration, and motivation that you need.
Yeah, what is that saying? Don't judge your chapter by someone else's book, or there's some metaphor around that. It's so easy to do. And to paraphrase one of our other guests, he said, be really protective of your confidence and what is going in to build your confidence. And that includes scrolling and comparing yourself to other people. And, what are you putting into your mind and heart? And how much is it fulfilling actually your vision, your purpose? So,
Yeah.
lots of great nuggets of wisdom today here. Listeners, I hope you took as much out of it as I did. Dr. Steve Tullius, again, thanks for your time. And listeners, be sure to give him a follow and check out the links in the show notes to find out more on how you can connect with him.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa.